Guys, welcome back to another salvage auction analysis, and this is our second NSX that we are going to be doing on this series. I did a black one that is still available on IAA for parts. This one is definitely not a parts car. This is kind of a unique scenario with this car that I don't think you see that often, especially with this type of car at auction. So we're going to dive in. I'm going to show you all of the very interesting parts on this car. Then ultimately we're going to see what it sells for today. We're on the IAA app, and I'm not going to get to the pictures yet. We're going to scroll down. This thing is running through the Dream Rides auction, which is just a collection of all, just a bunch of high-end cars that are at IAA. It runs at the beginning of the week, normally Monday, but because of the holiday, it didn't run yesterday. This thing is pre-bid to $32,000, and I think ultimately it's going to sell for much, much more than that, even though there's a lot of question marks around this car. As we keep scrolling down here, you can see odometer, really nothing interesting there. This is in New Jersey. Actual cash value $74,000, which is essentially what you can take that insurance paid out on the car. That's usually that value. Estimated repair cost at $34,000, which is a lot of insurance type money in there. We're going to go over the pictures and I'll show you why that number is extremely inflated, but that's also the reason that it's at insurance auction. Scrolling down, you can see the engine. The 3-liter V6 is going to be the most interesting part of this vehicle. The other thing that I thought was funny is the vehicle class is listed as Prestige Sport. I don't think I've ever seen that before. But now to the pictures. And this is where it gets interesting because there is not a ton of damage on this car. You are missing what are the coolers and the AC condensers that are on both the passenger and driver side, where you normally see like oil coolers on this car. One thing also to note is that I don't see in any of the pictures any side skirts. It's always good when you're looking at these auction pictures. You see there's like a roll of tape leaning against that Civic in the background. It's always good to look around in the pictures to see if you see other body panels that are maybe missing in the pictures. So everything here on this side, even the frame rail, looks to be fine. Next picture, you get over to the driver's side, and you can see there's more damage. That lower kind of rail bucket in front of the wheel there is definitely a little bit mangled, but the frame rail itself to me looks to be okay. We have a headlight, just not a headlight cover, flat tire, really not a lot else kind of jumping out in this particular picture. Go to the rear. Again, the side skirts missing on both sides is a little bit interesting to me, and kind of, I guess, just essentially worth noting because I don't see them anywhere around the car in these pictures. Pretty bad sun glare on this one. Maybe some paint peel on the rear spoiler there, but nothing too crazy. Get to the interior here. Now, one of my biggest questions on this is what transmission this car actually has, because it is, I believe, listed as an automatic. I'll have to go back and look. It looks like an automatic here, and the cluster is definitely an automatic. And that seems interesting to me for this car being a swap car. You can kind of see like a button that is on the shifter there that maybe, again, just confirms that it's an automatic. 96,000 miles. You can see in the upper right corner there, you can see that this thing is definitely an automatic cluster is what it started out as. Here's another picture of the front. Now, maybe that is just turned in slightly on that frame rail, but there's not a lot of damage here at the front. And this is the most interesting part of this car. It is a K-swap, which is just absolutely awesome to me, with these parts just being ridiculous, hard to find, massive value. If you have a car that is a roller, a blown motor, something along those lines, a K-swap, it's just an awesome way to get one of these things back on the road. I have to say, I don't know a ton about them as far as what's needed. I would assume that you have an adapter plate that mounts to the stock transmission is how I would assume that this is done, but you can see a massive, massive turbo, and it's just crazy to see a car this modified at auction. Normally, when you have somebody that's invested this amount of time and money into a car, they will do an insurance buyback on it in the event of an accident, and not everyone knows about that process, so maybe that's why it's here. But it's just massively, massively interesting to see one of these cars at auction with this swap. And again, here is that cluster lit up, automatic cluster on it. We're gonna go ahead, go back, because there's a run video for this thing. Sounds completely fine. It's obviously a huge relief to hear this thing running in a run video, and you're not just going into it, you know, like if the car was on Copart where you didn't have a run video where it'd be listed as running, but you have to kind of just hope that it's actually accurate. Now, we're gonna jump in, we're gonna watch this thing at auction, and I do want to say just right off the bat that this car, as much as I want it, I'm not going to be bidding on it, and I'll explain why a little bit later on in the video. Alrighty, here we go. It is nice to see reserve off. You can see that it is up to $37,000. I have absolutely no bearing on what this car could potentially go for. It looks like there's several different bidders that are in on it. The action is definitely moving. The appeal on this car is definitely pretty high, I think, given that it is a running car. There's proof of it running. It sounds fine in the run video. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this thing kind of just charge maybe further into the 40s. It looks like it's slowing down a little bit here. I mean, 40 seems like a big number for this car, but I also wouldn't be surprised at all, again, to see it kind of charge up towards like 45. These just, they're not really out there heavily modified like this. And we'll talk a little bit more about that after the auction. Bid coming up on 40. All right, bid right now is 40. All right, let's see how high this thing goes. South Carolina and Iowa are the two left I've seen going back and forth here. I think everyone else maybe has bowed out at this point. Okay, it's really slowing down now, but these two are still going. This is kind of crazy too, because it just goes to show you what two people can do with an auction car. These two have been going at it for the last probably $5,000 with just them two going at it, no one else involved here, and it's just continuing to go up. Maybe this is going to be the end, just under 43. That is it. There you go. Just under $43,000 for a K-Series swapped NSX with a mystery transmission. So I know that there's a large group of people that watch these videos that stick around for the further analysis after the fact, and I do love to open it up in the comments for people's opinions so we can kind of go back and forth, because there's a lot of viewers of the channel that have a lot of just good insight, look at things differently than maybe I do, since I'm in this industry, where somebody's mind that's like a private buyer might operate a little bit differently. I've done a lot of these videos at this point. The last NSX video, the black one, we won that car, but insurance wanted too much money for it. As I stated earlier, this car, I didn't have any interest in bidding on it. And a lot of the cars that I feature in this series aren't necessarily cars that I'm trying to buy, which is a kind of important distinction to make. I don't want people to get the idea that we're, looking at all these cars and we just don't win any of them. A lot of these I'm not even interested in bidding on. They're just cars of interest to me. And this one is definitely of interest, but as I teased in the last video, I have basically a version of this car here already. That would be massively confusing if I were to rebuild another one of them, since the current one I have is a first generation. It is a front end damaged car, much worse than this. And another little teaser, it is a turbo car, but it's an original motor. So we're gonna have a lot of fun with that car, and that just is why I didn't have interest in bidding on this one here. And honestly, I think the money was too high anyway. It just is a lot of money for a lot of question marks. If I could have gone and looked at this car in Jersey, then I might have felt differently about that. But I believe it went to the Iowa bidder, which seems just a lot to risk on an auction car like this. And the other thing that I wanted to talk about, the segue here, is why this car is at auction. If you put that much time, money, energy into a car, and why would you let insurance take it? You know, you have insurance buybacks, and normally it is a percentage of what they pay out, or it's based on the auction value, where they look up the auctions real quick and say, hey, the last 5 NSXs that have run at auction average $30,000. That's what it'll cost for you to buy it back from us. But not everybody necessarily knows how that process works, or that they even have that option. So it's entirely possible that somebody had an accident with this car, insurance said, hey, this is the payout we're gonna give you on it, and they just didn't even know to ask about a buyback on it, or maybe they just didn't want the car. But when you see a car that has that much time and energy into it, it's always just not reassuring to see it at salvage auction, because it makes you wonder why the owner of the vehicle didn't want it back. And there's any maybe number of different scenarios that you can spin as to why they didn't. But we know what it sold for at auction now. It was cool to watch. I genuinely am curious what other people think. A lot of people with the last one that we were bidding on for parts were kind of shocked by the value that we bid, and insurance didn't even approve it. They wanted 50% more than we bid for the car. So I'm very, very curious to see what a lot of the viewers of the channel here think about a $42,000 bid, and then auction fees on top of that, shipping. I mean, you're gonna have maybe upwards $46,000, $47,000 to get that car out to Iowa, which just, again, seems like a lot of question marks, a lot of money for the question marks. And hopefully the car is as it appears. Hopefully somebody did the research. We didn't even go back and look at the auction history on the car. I don't think that it has any, but that'll be something interesting for the viewers here to look up if you want to yourself. And if there's something that kind of jumps out that's concerning, that's worth noting, then definitely just let me know down in the comments. But I got another car that's going to be running at auction tomorrow that I'm going to do a video on. That car we're going to try and buy. It's a Corvette. It's a cool color. It's a Grand Sport. It's got a lot of really, really good stuff on it. So that one will be one that we will be actually trying to bid on. So if you want to see that, definitely tune in. As always, thank you for the support, and we will see you on one of the channels for the next video.